Good evening, neighbors and friends. It's a delight to be here. So many familiar faces. First, I'd like to tell you that I'm a fiscal conservative and proud of it. And I want to tell you a story about that fiscal conservatism. A few years ago, I was one of only 2 people bidding on the Cleveland Indians. And my employees said, I've heard the story later, of course, as an employer, you hear the stories later. They said, oh my God, if Ganley gets the Indians, there won't be any night games because he always shuts the lights off. Ladies and gentlemen, America, Ohio, and the 13th Congressional District are in trouble. We collectively need to send a message to Washington, ladies and gentlemen, that we're damn tired of what's going on there. We're finished with it. And we're going to take the actions that are necessary to take back our country. And the only way we can do that, ladies and gentlemen, is to do it together. November is going to be a very historic election, one that's going to be remembered for decades and decades. And you play a role, every single one of you. We need you to get out and vote. Whoever that may be for, we need you to do that. You've heard my story from Roger, and I'm proud of it. I think I can go to Washington, as Roger said, without any ties. I don't owe anyone anything, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll be there to represent you. I've spent the last 10 months traveling the state of Ohio, running for the United States Senate, as a matter of fact. And a decision was made just last week to switch so that we can take a giant step to take back our country. Right now, the Neil Newhouse poll, a national poll, shows me ahead of Betty Sutton by nearly 4 points, and I haven't started the campaign yet. I, ladies and gentlemen, know how to create jobs. I've spent 42 years in business creating jobs and meeting up payroll every week for 42 years. And I defy anyone in the House or the Senate to stand up to those numbers. As a small businessman, deficits are not in my vocabulary. And there's a number of other small business people in this room, and I can speak for them, I feel, by telling you that they cannot run deficits either. You wouldn't be in business very long running deficits. I understand budgets, ladies and gentlemen. I've had budgets in my organization for 42 years. But more importantly, I understand the discipline to stay within those budgets. It's very easy to create budgets. It's darn hard to stay within them. It's darn hard to stay within them. But that takes discipline on a personal level and on a business level. And I can bring that to Washington, D.C., and I'll bring that for you. It's been said, ladies and gentlemen, that when people get to Washington, D.C., they change. Someone said, oh my goodness, Ganley, are you going to drink the Kool-Aid when you get there? Or the water? Well, let me tell you about the reason I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid or the water in Washington, D.C. And this is a hard story to tell. My family and I were victims of an organized crime, the mafia extortion. And I said the mafia, and that's no joke. Ladies and gentlemen, they're ugly human beings. For 2 years, covertly, in a very secret way, I worked with the FBI, wearing wires, bulletproof vests, and video recorders. Every telephone that belongs to the Ganley organization was monitored, or the term is bugged, even including my home phones. For 2 years, I did that. At great risk to my family. At great risk to my family. My children's lives were threatened. I have 4 children. Grew up here in Brexville. And their lives were on the line. But we didn't give in. And then, when we finally got them indicted, ladies and gentlemen, They threatened to kill everybody in my family for a $1 million contract. $1 million. If someone would successfully kill my 4 children, my wife and I. With that, the FBI moved into my house. Now, normally protecting federal witnesses is not the job of the U.S. That's the job of the U.S. Marshal Service. It is not the job of the FBI. But because of the bond that was built up over 2 years and the life-threatening risk that we took together, they moved into my home. They drove my wife to the supermarket, observed my children at school, and incidentally, Chippewa Elementary School, that's here in Brecksville, the Mafia visited my kids there. Try that on for size. I rode in a bulletproof, bomb-resistant car for a year with an FBI agent driving and one in the back seat with an M16 or an Uzi machine gun. Ladies and gentlemen, if I did not back down to the Mafia, I'm sure as hell not going to back down to those interests in Washington, D.C. I'll stand tall for you. Ronald Reagan said, the best way to end a recession is to cut taxes. And ladies and gentlemen, I've been through a number of recessions in the automobile industry, and I know for a fact that you cannot raise taxes and in fact extricate yourself from a recession. And the only way we can afford in this country to cut taxes is to reduce the size of the federal government. And I welcome that challenge. Over all these years, when a recession took place, and I've been in business since April 1st, 1968, when a recession took place, particularly in the auto industry, you have to contract your business. And I've had to do that recently because of the drop-off in business. But all through that, ladies and gentlemen, all through this downtime, our federal government has continued to expand. That's wrong. And I will play a part in changing that. As you can imagine, as a businessman, I know how to say no. And I will take that to Washington, but I'll also take the fact that I know and can instill business policies and principles in the people in Washington, D.C. that we so badly need. Ladies and gentlemen, for the last 150 years, there has not been a conservative fiscal majority in the Senate or the House. I just found that out recently in talking to Orrin Hatch, a senator from Utah. 150 years now. He's been in the Senate for 37 years. And in that 37 years, there has never been a fiscally conservative majority. Shame on us. But do you know how we change that, ladies and gentlemen? One seat at a time. We have to do what we need to do here in Ohio in the 13th Congressional District. We know how to do it. I need your help. I need you to rise up for Ohio. I need you to rise up for our Constitution. And most importantly, I need you to rise up for this great United States of America. And thank you very much. Now it's time for questions. I think I'm ready. Let's start in the back and we'll get you next, sir.
Back here?
Right.
What did you do with the cash bumping program?
You know what? And this election is going to be about the automobile industry. Cash for clunkers, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about that. Boy, can I tell you that I know a great deal about that. Cash for clunkers was a mistake. All we did, ladies and gentlemen, was fund a large sum of money to add to our deficit. We didn't create any jobs. Didn't create one job. But we brought all the business forward. Anyone that was going to buy a car in September, October, November, December, or January moved ahead to August. And once that program ended, at the 30-day period when it ended, the automobile business shut off, just like a faucet. So the very simple answer to your question is, this may shock you, I would have voted against cash for clunkers. Absolutely. We can't afford to do it. We don't have the money to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Next question, you're ready.
Based on your knowledge of the